right now. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt, Kanawha, West Hancock Athletics Podcast. Dan Kroll here for episode 77. It's been about a month since I've done an episode, so I might be a little rusty. We're recording this at about 8:10 at night, so it's going to be a later night for these people, but they're young and spry, and they'll be good to go for a good hour here. So here we go. Thanks again, ladies and Dick, for coming on. This is the 1996 Girls State Championship track team from West Hancock. Before I get to these champions, though, I need to recognize my sponsors. We have 17 of them tonight, so thanks again to all the people for sponsoring the podcast. We have Nick Schmidt, then we have Lori Peterson-Hadachik, former teammate of yours, Paul Hauge, Levi Dunn Trucking, Miller & Sons Golf Cars, Jay Hiscox of State Farm Insurance, Eric Kroll of Ag Performance, Window World, Swenson's Hardware, Nikki Riedesel, Realtor and Hairstylist in the Britt area, The Flower Cart, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Kelly Real Estate, Triple B's Food Truck, Advanced Door Systems in Forest City, and Doug and Kathy Zool. And again, all the money that these sponsors give to the podcast goes to the Sanger Legacy Fund. We use that money to fund the Hall of Fame. We give scholarships to graduating seniors. We support athletic and activity funds at school and any other community outreach program. So if you want to sponsor the podcast, please message me. If you just want to give to the Sanger Legacy Fund, you can go to sangerstrong.com to learn more and to give there. Real quick here, I just finished writing my book that I've been working on for the last 2 years. It's the history of the Britt and West Hancock football and wrestling programs on a couple Google Docs. It's about 650 pages long. So there's a lot of good history just in those two sports alone at West Hancock and Britt. So Miss T from the school is my editor. She's almost done editing, and she has put a crazy, ridiculous amount of time into editing the book. Once she's done editing and I go through those, we're going to get things rolling through typesetting and then get it printed up in Buffalo Center. Al Carson's going to be doing that through Bison Graphics. So if you want to buy a book, I still have plenty of copies left to pre-order. They're $25 each, and it should be a good read, I would hope. And if not, I'm not a very good author, so hopefully it's good. Way back when, 50 episodes ago, in episode 27, I talked to Mark Sanger after they won the 2021 football title. So I'll have that linked in the podcast posts on Facebook, so check that one out. Thanks again to these sponsors, the Jay Hiscox State Farm Team in Britt. Nikki Riedesel is working for Deemer Realty, and she's also a hairstylist in Kanawha, so check out Nikki. Levi Dunn Trucking, Eric Kroll with Ag Performance in Buffalo Center, my favorite brother, and Nick Schmidt, 2000 West Hancock grad. All right, here we go. We can start talking now. Let's start with some introductions. Again, this is the 1996 Girls State Championship track team from West Hancock. We got to start with the coaches. Upper left-hand corner of your screen here. Guys, where are you at these days? What are you doing? What's keeping you busy?
Well, we're in Ames, Iowa, and we're both retired. So I got 9 holes of golf in this morning and, living the good life.
Yeah, we came down here, and both of my sisters are living in Ames now too. And we have a lot of family around. So that's been a lot of fun. And we've met a lot of new people, and we love it here. There's a lot of great places to go hiking and biking and walking. So.
All right, let's go, Kristen. We'll just kind of go clockwise around here. Go ahead.
After college, I did the Air Force for a bit. After the Air Force, I got working in travel. So I've been a travel director on national park tours, bus tours of the national parks for about 17 years. And last year I decided to find something new. So actually in 2 weeks, I start as a national park ranger in Denali, Alaska. I'll do that for the summer. And then I'm going to Antarctica this winter for my first season down at McMurdo Station. So I've always been into travel ever since school. So
nice. And are you taking that station wagon with you behind you?
I wish. Wouldn't this be great?
Yeah, for a couple miles maybe at this point. Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Haley? 2023 West Hancock Hall of Fame inductee, Haley Newbrow. Oh, you got on pause, unmute yourself there. Oh, I'll get you. There we
Technologically
go.
disabled.
There
Yes,
we go. We got you.
I'm living in Mason City and we've been living here for probably 10 years and raising my 4 kids. That's pretty much it.
Oh, what's your job, Haley?
I work at the hospital here at Mercy.
How about you, Miss Candace Wilson, also Hall of Famer and 2-time podcast guest now?
All right, I know. Thank you. I live in Oklahoma City with my husband and 4 kids, and I'm staying at home. Although this year I started subbing at the school, at my kids' school. So I've been doing that. So sub everything. You sub PE, art. Let's see, it was 3rd grade this week, or last week, I guess. Kindergarten, 5th grade. Oh, you basically goes pre-K to 8th grade. So I feel like I've done a little bit of everything this year, which has been fun. And there's certain grades I'm like, I don't want to go back to.
Yeah.
But that's been a good thing.
Can we put you on our Rolodex up here because we're always short subs? Could you make
Right? Well, I feel like that's kind of the everywhere. I feel like that's the theme, unfortunately. But
are you enjoying it at least?
I actually really do. I like it. It's been fun. It's kind of fun to see like who your kids hang out with. Are they the ones that you're like, okay, and then the ones you're like, That's always eye-opening and just fun to see the teachers and just kind of see how they work and how much work it is. I mean, you always know how much work being a teacher is, like the grind, but I've always been appreciative, and I think that appreciation has just grown tremendously. It's a lot. Well done, Jan. Well done. Because I'm like, I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed, to say the least.
And all I can say for me is 7 more days. That's all we have left.
Yeah.
Oh. And Jen, how about you? What's up with you guys these days?
Yeah, so Doug and I live in Britt with our 3 girls, and we've got a sophomore who got to run track this year again, and then we've got a 7th grader who runs track as well, and then our 5th grader will run track Monday in a few days, so that's always kind of fun. I work as a nurse at the hospital here in town. I'm the nurse manager for our inpatient unit at the hospital.
Nice. Well, welcome again, the 96 Girls State Championship track team. It's been 27 years since you guys won it all, plus others, obviously. And we're hoping Rachel Williams can get on here in a little bit. She's schedules and stuff. Hopefully she's going to be able to pop on here. Yeah, 28 years ago, though, you guys were state runner-up. So a year before winning the state championship, 1995 state runner-ups. And Beth, real quick, we got to talk about when I was putting the notes together, Beth was like, yeah, we were runner-ups in 95. I went to the Girls Athletic Association website and it didn't say that we were runner-up. So Beth, talk about that a little bit. What did you discover and how'd you fix that?
I just called them up and I said, excuse me, but we were runner-up. Could you investigate it? And she said, okay, I'll investigate. And then it changed. So they were right on it. So I think someone just did a typo or something. Because they discovered, yes, we were, and the 2 teams that followed us were like, what, 2 points behind our score? I can't remember for sure.
Yeah,
but close. And the embarrassing moment of that, and it was through notes that we received from people, which we got lots of notes. And this one was from Sandy Tatey, who was the Manly coach. And she was saying, I wonder why it took you guys so long to go down. Well, I went to state before that just thinking, oh, for each person that was there, hoping they would do really well. I had no idea that we could possibly score like high enough to be 2nd place or anything. So I was in total shock. I wasn't looking for the overall score at that time. Bad coach. But so we were just in shock, and that's why it took us so long to get out on the track. Because we were Yeah.
I distinctly remember this because none of us, I think, had any idea, because the picture I have on the screen behind me is the 8 people we went down with. That was it. We literally went in a station wagon as opposed to a bus. And I remember that as well, being like, what do you mean we placed? This is awesome.
So, life's embarrassing moments. What can you say?
Dick and Beth, how long have you, we're at 95 right now. How long have you guys were the track coaches at that point? When did you guys start coaching at West Hancock?
84, right, for me.
Mhm.
And then Dick was
I was the bus driver for 3 years.
87, started. The assistant coaches left, and I said, honey, you're helping with the shot and the discus already. You're driving the bus. Why don't you get paid? And yeah. He added comedy relief to the situation. I was the serious one, kind of nose to the grindstone, and he would add the little spice, you might say, or flavor to the whole thing. Right, you guys? This is
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree. I concur.
Girls, talk about what it was like having these two as track coaches. What did you guys think of that? What do you remember? Good memories from the time?
I think they made it feel like family. Just they were such great coaches and obviously had a lot of love for each other. And I think they did a good job sharing that with, the different teams that they coached.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I feel like I loved having them as coaches. Beth was one of my mom's really good friends. So it was I always considered Beth almost like a second mom. So it was kind of interesting to have her in that coaching role. But I feel like Beth always kind of pushed you. For me, she always pushed me more than I even thought possible, or even she'd always just be like, oh, you could do this. And I was like, could I? I don't know. I was like, she always like, and then I think she's always kind of just flabbergasted that I wasn't thinking certain ways. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I would echo what both of them said, that they were definitely like family, and that Beth was a very good encourager and really brought out the best in each person and helped them to achieve that in a very gentle way, but firm. And so I think that was a good role model for me being a mom, and also in the way I practice medicine. And I take her with me.
I love that. I want to second that as well, Haley. I worked a lot more with Dick, obviously, because he was the throws coach and I was a thrower, and which loved it. It was amazing. He was always there for me and everything. And Beth has also had always that presence of kind support and encouragement. And I went and found something recently. Beth, do you remember this?
No.
This is the most ridiculous thing, but this is a little voodoo doll that says FC for Forest City. This was a little voodoo doll I made about Forest City. and I just had it in my locker and stuff. One of my friends made it for me. It was a ridiculous thing because Forest City was usually very competitive with us, and scoring high. And when Beth found out that I had the little voodoo doll, she sat me down and kindly and gently said, Kristen, we need to have a talk about sportsmanship. And I remember she was so kind and so gentle. I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. I should not have a voodoo doll of other teams. I wasn't poking with pins or anything. It was just a funny little thing. But I respected how she approached me when she said, probably not the best thing for sportsmanship. And so it was a funny memory. And I cannot believe I found this recently. And when I knew this podcast was coming up, I was like, I want to show that. So thank you, Beth, for being kind and gentle in your teaching.
I've done a lot of these podcasts. That's a first. I never had a voodoo doll pop up on the podcast. So here we go. Always something. You never know.
Have Kristen on more often.
Yeah. This just might have to become a regular thing. Kristen just comes on and shows us the Random things she finds in her closet. So there we go. Got a new segment. Andy, I don't know how to segment away from that, but let's go back to 1995 here. Haley, you won the 800 meter state championship. You were also second in the 1500. The DMed was second. Jen ran in the 800 as well. Kristen was second in the discus and third in the shot. And you guys only lost a few seniors from that team. Did you guys think at that point, at the end of 95, you had a good chance of winning it in 96? What were kind of the expectations like going into that 96 season?
For me, I was like, oh my gosh, I no longer was in the dark as far as possibilities, you know, and I thought, yeah, we had a really good chance. We had good freshmen coming in, as well as just a good, well-rounded team with senior leadership that was just awesome. But I felt lots of pressure. I remember probably around in Thanksgiving time, going over to the track and spending some time praying for that next season, because I felt the pressure, like I'm really responsible here, that I need to produce something here, and I need to know how best to inspire and get the best out of them. And not so much, I guess not so much because I thought, oh, I want to win a state championship, but I want them to be the best they can. And if they've got the potential to win that state championship, I don't want to blow it as a coach, right? So the pressure for me was extremely high, and daunting, but exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. It was something new and exciting. We had lots of people that were, I can remember the North Iowa coach saying, oh, you guys have a great shot at winning this, you know, and just our conference coaches were just amazing.
They were like family as well. Yes, they wanted to beat us, but they were our greatest supporters. I don't know how many of them, when we got down to, and I don't know if you guys even knew that, but how many of down at state track made a point to come up to us, say, you've got this, you can do it. You know, they were just really supportive.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask too, because it's kind of in the same line here. You had a couple other track coaches at West Hancock with you guys, and Bob Sanger and Paul Hauge. What was it like working with them, and how did they help you guys through coaching track together? I know they were boys and you guys were girls, but you know how it goes at practice, everyone's kind of together. And
yeah,
Bob and Paul a little bit.
Well, Bob, especially in the first few years, helped me out so much. But then Bill Hudson gave me some really good wisdom. He said, you need to make this your own. Mm-hmm. So I took the things I learned from Bob, but then kind of we went off on our own a little bit and became our own identity, and took pride for the girls and not just be work out with the guys. And I think like if you would watch us both at meets, the girls team had a tendency to be really supportive all around the track for everybody running. And maybe the guys not quite so much, but I think they appreciated that. So we had, like the girls said earlier, a family focus, or everybody's a part of this team. And so we took that role from the guys too, that they were a part of our team, but we were still ourselves and we were unique. And I loved, you notice I'm the one that I wore the one from 1996, E-Gals. I kind of took a pride in that.
Before that became politically incorrect, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep, I have the, I put a picture on Facebook, but the old gym mat that was on the stage, I have that in my garage, mounted up on the garage. It says Eagles, E-Gals, and that's great.
Yep.
I would say one other thing that, as far as Bob's being able to help out, I would go, and I think even the year of that we won state, I had some dilemmas on what people to run where and where to put people. And I went to him and he gave some really good counsel. So I would say he gave outstanding counsel, and he was really supportive.
Yeah, he was.
And so was Paul. Paul kept track of all kinds of things. And then Boozman also helped out that year too.
Voluntary.
Voluntary.
Yeah.
Yep, today's his birthday, so perfect timing. I
Happy
it on Facebook just this morning, so happy birthday, Chuck. Let's move on to the 96 season here, keep things moving. But thanks again to some of these sponsors, the Flower Cart and Britt, Lori Peterson-Hadachik, former teammate of yours. She is the owner of Peterson's Ponies and Registered Halflingers in Britt, Swenson's Hardware, Triple B's Food Truck, Advanced Door Systems in Forest City, and Michael Ewing of Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company. All right, let's talk some 96 here. Let's go to the North Iowa Conference, which is no longer a thing. That's the Top of Iowa Conference is what it's called now. You guys won the 96 conference title with 138 team points. Forest City, the voodoo doll thing there, 104 points, second place. North Iowa 88, Belmont scored 68, Garner 48, Lake Mills 19, Northwood 17, and Osage surprisingly in last place as kind of one of the bigger schools in the conference. They had 16 points. In my research, I saw in the paper, Beth said that as a program, they'd been second at conference many times, but this was our first conference title on the girls' side. First of all, how close were you guys to winning titles in the past, and what did it feel like to win that first team title?
Well, I think one of the reasons Kristen has that voodoo doll is because Forest City had depth. And one of the things that really kept us from beating them in the conference was they would just score so many points, getting thirds, fourths, fifths. And, you know, we would have some really talented good times and throws and things like that, but we just couldn't overcome the depth until, you know, 96 basically.
Mhm.
I thought Kristen was going off to show us something else, but
Technical difficulties.
yeah. What the rest of you girls, what do you guys think about winning the conference title?
I'm completely blanking right now. I know conference title is always an important thing, but it's so long ago I can't remember, and that's really sad.
City too.
Oh, was up at Forest City. Nice.
Give you a little context, you guys broke some school records and 3 conference records that day. Danielle Dawn broke the record for the school in the 100. She got second at the meet with a 16.89, but it was a new school record. Kristen, you were second at shot, but you broke the conference record in the discus with a throw of 121.4. Haley set the conference record in the 3,000, and according to the paper, it was her first time running the 3,000. Ran an 11-minute and 8-second race, broke the conference record by 11 seconds, and won the race by 45 seconds. Haley, what was the conversation? Hey, we want you to run the 2-mile, and good luck. You remember what that was like?
Beth will have to help me remember, but I think that we did talk about it and it was like, why not?
Well, I think I usually see conference came after districts. So we had state down. And so we tried to take conference and allow everybody to do an event they wanted to do.
Oh, we want to try, yeah.
And that's Haley wanted to do the 3,000. She wanted to give that one a try. And so we talked about it and I said, well, don't go out too hard. Just stay ahead and see.
Oh, yeah. Coming back now.
Yeah, well, she kind of went beyond that. I don't know where she was when she was running, but she took off and just went.
I don't think I'd voluntarily run a 2-mile race myself, but when you're fast like she is, you can do about anything. But yeah, And then Haley, you also broke the conference record in the 800 with a 220. The old record was a 223.72. So it's kind of fun to see those numbers and those records go. Did you keep track in years after that to see how long those records stayed? Or any of those records still records? Do you have any idea at this point?
Oh. Do you know?
I don't know.
No, that'd be kind of fun to look into. Well, the North Iowa Conference is no more, so if you had it, still had the record by 2015, that record's good forever unless they blended the two conferences. I'm not sure how they did that, but either way. So, anything else on the conference meet in Forest City that you guys can think of? Yeah, you guys are a talkative group tonight, though. Yeah.
Just wanted to
That's
get
been 27 years, so I'll give you a little bit of slack on that.
I have to say this one caveat on track meets. I feel like the thing about track meets, I feel like Forest City, if I can remember, it was actually good weather. And I think the thing about that is you don't remember the good weather track meets. You just remember the miserable weather. For me, I remember the miserable weather I had to run through. Like those are the track meets that are memorable. You know, when you are running on the Britt track and you turn the corner to the north wind and it just like stops you where you're at. You're like, ah. Those are the ones I remember. So those are, you know, the painful ones.
Yes, so true. It was a beautiful night. That's what I remember. And yeah, it was a beautiful night.
That
Beautiful
whole
weather.
good. The district was nice as well. We'd had a terrible weather that season up to that week, and it was cold and wet, and we were really concerned that we couldn't try out a lot of different things. So because, and we were concerned about even getting times for districts because we couldn't get meets in time for when we had to turn in the entries for districts because the weather was so bad. And then state track was 95 degrees. So it was like shock to everybody's system. People were dropping on the track down at state. Yeah.
And before we get to state, I just made me think of a question. When you got in 96, did they still have the thing where you could qualify for state throughout the season, or was it only through districts that you made it to state?
Only through districts.
that was a boys thing.
That was only boys. Okay. They changed that a few times, and then the two associations, it's always confusing to remember what's what, so I wasn't sure. So
Hey, I want to give a shout out to little Pete. She was probably one of the hardest working discus throwers I had. And she just really worked hard at what she did. And I thank her for supplying support for this program.
We called her Mo for Dynamo.
Oh.
That was the nickname I had for her on the track.
nice. All right, I'm going to hit a few sponsors here quick, then we're going to talk about that state meet in 96 where you won it all. Thanks to Miller & Son Golf Cars and Coach Paul Hauge, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, the Showalter family and Window World of Mason City, and Kelly Real Estate in Britt. All right, let's get to state here. You got through districts, got all these events to state we're going to talk about. When it was all said and done, you guys scored 53 team points. Second place, Iowa City Regina had 34, so a 19-point win in the team standings. Trainer had 29 points, Arweva 26, Belle Plaine 26, and then another conference school, North Iowa Buffalo Center, scored 22. I compared 2A and 3A for fun. Our point total would have won 2A if you were just going by points. Obviously, sometimes maybe not apples to apples comparison, but we're going to get into that and see how you guys probably would have won 2A based on times and throws. Let's start with the 400. Candace Wilson, 6th with a 59.39. You ran a 60.83 in the prelims. You would have been 3rd in Class 2A and 5th in Class 3A with that time of 59.39. The event in 1A was won by Christy Johnson of Alburnett with a 57.84. Candace, what do you remember about running that race at state? Oh, you got on mute.
Mute.
Yeah, sorry,
There
my
we go.
kids were coming in. I think I just remember, you know, how tight you feel at the very end. I just remember being like, I'm dying, and like, you know, but you just got to push as hard as you can the 400, and that's about what I remember. But yeah, I mean, I think I was happy with that. I think remember anytime I could get under a minute, I was like, you know, that was a win. But yeah, that was I feel like anytime you can make it to a final for me, again, like where Beth would be like, you know, you can do this, and I'd be like, okay, sure, okay, let's see what what can happen. I feel like, what lane was I in? I feel like I was in lane weird, like, was it lane 8, or I feel like I was in one of those outside lanes.
State lane,
Mhm.
not the fun one.
Yeah.
For the.
Yeah, so it was just kind of a weird spot to run on if you're on the outside lane 8. So, but yeah.
And refresh our memories here, because they've changed it again and over the years. Scoring for state. So she got 6th. Did they only score up to 6 places back then, or was it 8 like it is now? Was it 6?
6.
6,
So 8 ran in the finals, but only 6 scored points.
right.
Right.
Okay, so even if you got to the finals, you weren't guaranteed points for your team. You had to get top 6.
Right.
That's a change from now, because now it's still 8 in the finals, but all 8 get points if you finish the race. Don't get DQ'd. So, all right, how about the 800? We had someone named Haley Newbrow win a state championship in the 800 with a 216.93. Second in 1A behind Haley was Anna Hoskins of North Kasuth, not far from Britt, with a 219.3, so about a 2.5 second win. Haley would have won Class 2A by 7 seconds. It's only 2.5 second win in 1A, but you would have won it by 7 in 2A. And you would have also won the 3A title by 3.5 seconds. Jen, you were 13th with a 224.67. 13th in 1A, but that would have been good for 3rd in 2A and 7th in 3A, which just shows how competitive Class 1A was. What do you two remember about running that 800? Jen, how about you?
Again.
Yeah, I don't know. It was such a fun race, and it was such good competition. And, you know, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talk about how competitive 1A was. I mean, you know, you think, oh, these big schools, they've got all this talent and whatever, but you know, I think us scrappy little 1A schools, we really showed up, and, you know, we showed how hard we work, what great coaches we have. It was just pretty cool, I thought.
How about you, Haley? You got to say you're a state champion again. How'd that feel? Sure you unmute yourself. I'm gonna unmute you.
Haley,
Sorry.
there we go.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I have to echo Jen that it was a fun race. I do remember it being very hot. And I think probably what I remember the most is I think all my races were on Saturday. And so I was just so excited to get to run because I had to wait all day Friday. Am I remembering this right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, had all this pent up energy. Like, I have been waiting and I just want to get out there and run. And so it was fun. It was very exciting.
A lot of team points there for in the team race. And then let's move on to the 1500. So Haley, don't mute yourself just yet. 1500, you were also state champion with a 446.79. Runner up in Class 1A behind you was Carissa Romberg of Sioux Center with a 456.73. So you got a 10-second win there. You would have won 2A, and you would have been second in 3A by 0.4 of a second, which is crazy in a distance race like that. It comes down to just that little bit of time. Again, 2 for 2 so far. What was it like winning that second title at this time in the 15?
Yeah, it felt good. It was a lot of hard work put into it. I know I hate lifting weights to this day, but I'm pretty sure it was Dick that told me I had to lift weights if I wanted to win. So all winter long, I lifted weights, and I was, I think, one of the only girls in that stinky weight room, and I really kind of hated it. And but yeah, you do it. I guess for the young athletes listening, you do the things you don't necessarily want to do, and it does build your character.
How long of time did you have in between your races on that day? You said you ran all 3 of your races on Saturday. Do you remember how much rest time you had? Beth and Dick probably know more than you would. Not long enough.
Well, the 4x8 was fairly early in the morning, and that was your first race. That was, I think the 800 and the 1500 were the ones closer together. And I think both of those might have been in the afternoon, but they aren't run the same as they are now. And that was another point I was going to bring out. These guys could only qualify in 3 events. They can qualify in 4 now. So that would have been a fun thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
You guys might not have thought so, but woo.
Was it 3 events and a field event, or was it just 3 events total?
3 events total.
Okay, because then they went to 3 running and 1 field, and now it's you can do anything, I think. And again, I can't remember between boys and girls. They sometimes do it differently still, but they've again made a lot of changes over the years to the format. Yeah, well, we got to get to some throwing some heavy objects here. Kristen in the shot put. You third with a throw of 36 feet 5.25 inches. The state championship in 1A was won by Amy Sullivan of Riceville with a 37.55. So she got you by about a foot. Your best toss, that 36.5, would have been good for 6th in 2A and 11th in 3A. Kristen, talk about shot put a little bit and your success in 96.
So I was always a discus thrower who also did shot. Shot was not my favorite, but my sister had done it. So I enjoyed, doing something she did. So I was always just happy with whatever I got in the shot for placing and stuff. So junior year, 95, I got 3rd. And so I was happy to get 3rd again during senior year as well in 96.
Yeah, not too shabby for a discus thrower. Speaking of the discus, you said that was your thing. Well, of course it was, because you won the state championship in 96 with a throw of 143.07. Second place behind you was Stacy Anderson of Pomeroy Palmer, which is no longer a school. She threw a 126.05, so you got her by about 17 feet. Your throw would have won the state championship in class 2 and in class 3A. Did you know any of this at the time, like how you would have compared against other classes, or is this new information to you?
Oh, absolutely. So fortunately, I had worked hard and I knew I was going to probably win state in the 1A just because of what I had been throwing throughout the year. But when you get a medal at state back then, it's a little medal, a little gold medal, silver and bronze. But if you got all state, like you won all classes, then you got what I would call a candy medal. And I don't have it with me, no props. But it was colorful. It was red and it was blue and it had like the women's athletic thing on it. And I wanted the candy medal. So there was another girl who was very good and she was kicking my butt the whole season. She was in like 2A or 3A. And fortunately, they had already competed. Everyone else had already competed. And so 1A was the last group. So I knew what I had to beat. And she performed very poorly and only got a 140. And so I knew I had to beat 140. And I think I had thrown 140 in competition before that. But so my first throw out was a 143. And I was like, I just got the candy medal. So I just I'm going to do my other 2 throws right now. My first 3 throws that I just did back to back to back were all 143. So I was very happy with the consistency that day.
You brought your voodoo doll, but not your state championship medal. That makes total sense.
I know. This is where my priorities.
I'm not going to forget about that. Dick, what made Kristen such a good discus thrower?
Stick your arms out, Kristen. She's got wingspan. She used all of her levers. What is it? 6'4" wingspan or something? I
think it's a 6'5" wingspan. I'm 6 foot tall and my arms are longer than I am. Yeah. So I have strong legs and long arms. Definitely good for the physics of it all.
Yes. Yep.
Born for that.
And back then they had the podium so that they put the winners of each event, but the overall winner was at the top. And that's how she knows she got the candy medal, because, you know, and I think Haley was there a couple times too, you know, where they took the 1A, 2A, 3A winners, and then the overall was on the top. So, yeah, which was fun.
I thought maybe it was the practice the week before she
Yeah.
went down to state that helped her down there. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Oh, it was fun because you were throwing it into the net very consistent. And so I had you spin backwards and you threw it out in the middle of the practice field. And that seemed to solve everything. So now,
Were you a little scared, Dick? They're like, she could win a state championship or throw it into the net every time. Was that a fear for a little while?
it was one of the two gonna be.
Either nothing or a state title. Yep.
Yeah. And the girl from Cherokee was the one that had beat you at drill. And
Yes.
so, yeah. And so you had your sights set on her, I think.
All right. Well, let's keep moving here. Lori Peterson also threw disc that year. She got 12th in Class 1A with a 108.19. Would have been 9th in 2A and 11th in 3A. So would have fared just as well in the other classes. 4x1 was Nikki Lang, Amy Cooper, Jamie Kirsch, and Stacy Dawn. They ran a 52.84 but did not make the finals. The 4x2 was Nikki Lang, Sarah Beeler, Dawn I don't know how to say her name, Wieskamp, and Stacy Dawn with a 151.8 also did not make the finals but made it down to state. 4x4 included one of you. It was Nikki Pauls, Rachel Wilms, Brooke Wilson, and Candace Wilson with a 415.98 for 8th place, which back then would not have gotten you team points, but still top 8. Brooke had the top split in that race with a 62.7. In the prelims, you were 3rd with a 410.89. Would have been 6th with that same time in the finals and would have gotten a couple team points. North Iowa, Buffalo Center won the state championship with a 405, and they ran a 406 in the prelims. Candace, anything you remember about the 4x4? How was it running with your sister?
Gosh. It's so funny. Yeah, I loved running with Brooke, and she actually didn't go out the next year, and I always am sad about that. I'm always like, gosh, she should have, but that was her choice. But no, I loved running with Brooke, and when she beat me, I think she loved it too. Although she says she's not competitive, she is competitive. And she loved to beat me in my times. Yeah. And she was definitely the better runner of the two of us, for sure. So
let's move on to the 4x8 here. Won another state title. The foursome of Jen and Sarah Holloway, Brooke Wilson, and Haley. We would have won Class 2A by 0.2 of a second, and I, for some reason, didn't put 3A down, but I'm assuming it would have been probably scoring some points. Jen, how about you first? What was it like winning a state title?
Oh, it was the best. It was so exciting. And I think we knew we had a pretty good shot at it. We had a good team. But just getting started off, and it was really exciting. And getting to hand off to my sister, that was pretty special too. We had a few siblings, I think, on the team. So that made it really neat.
Mhm.
And then there's Haley, just like, oh, another state title, no big deal. Haley, what was it like for you winning a title with teammates in a relay, though, compared to individual? Gotta get you unmuted.
Sorry, very special, obviously. That was awesome. I think that as I look back on it, that was probably more memorable to win it with the other teammates and just be a part of that team. Like everyone has said before, we were more like a family. And I think Beth asked me a couple months ago about something, and I was like, I don't really remember those. The highlights of that year are like the people standing around every corner cheering for you. It's not necessarily always about the winning and losing, and it's about the teamwork. And she's right. There was always someone on every corner of every turn that you had. There was one or two teammates running across the field to like cheer you on at every single corner. So it really was a special time to see that and be part of that. Even the ones on the team that aren't with us here tonight, and that's actually what I remember the most. Yeah.
Another state championship we got to talk about, sprint med. Jamie Kirsch, Stacy Dawn Wieskamp, and Candace. 151.88. He ran a 152.12 in the prelims. Arweva was second with a 152.55, so about a half-second win there. 2A, we would have been fourth, and 3A, we would have been fifth. So again, we've fared very well in any of the classes. Candace, again, winning a state title with some teammates. What do you remember about sprint med?
Yeah.
What flag were you?
This was the one. I was a 400, so I finished the race. And this is the one I remember the most. But I feel like Jamie and Stacy and Dawn, I mean, they're, you know, in the 100 and 200s, and it's all about your handoff. And it was all really smooth handoffs. So I actually got it in first place, which is, you know, it's like its own pressure because it's like yours to lose. And I feel like was that right, Dick and Beth? Was that right? Did I get in first, or I feel like I was right in front of Arweva.
Yes.
I feel like she was right behind me the whole time.
And Arweva had won the last 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was her 4th year. So she was going for she was a senior, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so she was right on my tail the whole way. Like, just, you know, I could never see her, but I could hear her. I don't know if you had that. So it was the whole way. And I can, you know, think about when Beth was saying people always cheering on the corners. I can remember Lori Peterson. Literally, she'd always say, she's the only one that had ever called me this. So I always knew it was her. She's like, "Let's go, Willie." She'd just yell and scream it. And nobody else ever called me though. She was the only one. So I knew it was her. Just like, "Don't let her get you, Willie. You got her." Like down that back straightaway. And I remember just like she was making her kind of like push around that back corner. And I remember like, oh no, she's not going to pass me here. She's not going to pass me here. And so yeah, she thankfully never passed me, but I felt her the whole time. So yeah, that was probably one of the races I have a vivid memory of, probably because I had somebody literally right behind me the whole time.
Candace, I also remember you telling us that one of the Arweva girls was also at the corner saying to that Arweva girl, "You got her, you can get her." And
yeah,
you kind of kicked it in gear.
Right. A little bit of competitive then got into like,
a
oh no,
bit of competitive.
just a little bit. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dave Wilson.
And then one final race, and Jen, you were in this one, was the distance med. In 1A, we got 4th. So we got some team points there with Nikki Lang, Sarah Beeler, Brooke Wilson, and then Jen with a 419.52. Speaking of Arweva, they won it with a 413.78. We got 4th in 1A, but we would have been 2nd in 2A, and we still would have been top 8 team with 8th in 3A. Jen, what do you remember about that D-Med?
Oh, you know, I agree with Candace. It's hard to be the last flag in those medley relays. But yeah, you know, I guess I felt like I ran it well, and you know, I was happy with how we performed as a team.
Yes.
So got the state title. It was pretty obvious fairly early on you guys were going to win it. What was it like getting that trophy? What was the celebration like? The ride back to Britt? Talk about the after part of winning a state title.
Can I give them time to think about that? I just wanted to mention the sprinters that were in those relays. You know, you asked at the very beginning, did we feel pressure? You know, and I think everybody felt some pressure. We talked about it, but I think what those sprinters did that was exceptional that year is at practices, I wasn't having to get after them to practice handoffs. When they had any extra time, they were working those handoffs, and they stuck those handoffs really well. And I just wanted to make sure we spoke up about the great job they did at working on handouts and delivering really well, so that those people anchoring had a good chance of performing well. So there you go. Did you guys have time to think now? Come for him.
Good. Talk about that state title. It was like getting that trophy in your hands.
Yes.
It was terrible, apparently, or what?
I barely remember when we were at the track meet itself. I just remember there were so many of us that year, and it was so cool to be able to share it with so many people. Because like the year before, we had just 8 people down there, so that was wonderful. But that's the main impression I have at the meet itself. I do remember when we got back to Britt, was there like a fire truck or something? There
was a
seemed to be
fire
some
truck,
sort of a something that I was like totally tickled about. What happened there? Refresh my memory.
There was definitely a fire truck. I feel like we weren't we on the fire truck?
We got to ride on.
Yeah. Like to the high
Yes.
school. We rode it to the high school, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like did a little like drive through Main Street and then ended at the high school with a little pep rally.
Yep. Well,
Yes, I remember.
Oh, I think Sarah Holloway dumped a bucket full of water over my head down on the track. I think, was that right, Jen? Do you know?
Oh, I don't remember, but that sounds like something she would do.
Got the Super Bowl Gatorade cooler thing, like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a white outfit on, so that's a little dangerous.
Did you guys stay the night in Des Moines, Friday night and Saturday? Or did you guys go back and forth?
Oh, we stayed the night down there.
I know some schools
Just
even-
Friday night. Yeah.
Friday night.
Mhm.
I know, like you hear some schools that will make that couple-hour drive every day, and that'd be tough, but I'm sure expensive at the same time. So, yeah. Any other good stories from bus rides or in the tent at meets, routines or weird traditions you guys had, voodoo dolls, anything that you can remember besides just the races and the championship? Anything kind of stands out to you?
I mean, I can think of a couple just fun. I feel like Dick and Beth just made track fun. Like I can just remember like enjoying. I mean, there's like also a part, where track, I can still get like physically nauseous when I smell a track from just like the anxiety I feel. But there was just so much. We had so much fun. I remember even early on in practice, one time like we went and did like high knees and all this stuff like in the snow drifts out like kind of next to the field, next to the high school. Those are fun. You feel like there was always at least one practice where we could end up at the A&W and we get ice cream. That was like where we kind of do a long run through town and then end there. That was always one of my favorite practices. Those are a couple of things I can think of just, they made it fun.
I was thinking of a fun story, and I've got to tell, I've told it so many people, but and that's one of the things that you always got out of track. There were lots of stories that came out of it that were entertaining, but this one had to do so we would do for every practice, we would do a short warm up, and then we would do drills. So to work on form and high knees and butt kicks and crossovers and a lot of things like that. Well, this particular day that I was thinking about, we're getting ready to start doing those. We hadn't started them yet. And it had rained the night before. So you had, guess what, in front of you all over, you had worms. And my tender-hearted future pediatric doctor is like freaking out over these worms that we might hurt. And then Kristen decides enough of that, and she goes out and jumps on as many as she can find.
She's gonna be a park
Kristen, you
ranger.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
What kind of a psycho was I? Oh my gosh.
You were bringing balance. You were bringing balance to Haley.
You do bring me balance. It's fine. I remember you running across the track. I think my dad has this on video, Kristen, of you like running across the track when I went either the 800 or the 1500, like across the entire track, like diagonally. And I think like almost knocked me over because like I had just finished. So I was a little tired. But
I
I
remember
actually
giving you
have
the biggest hug.
the biggest hug. And I think we actually have a video of that. So you're amazing.
That was
Those
a lot
worms
of
would have
fun.
dried out anyway. You were just a lot wiser than me. You didn't want them to suffer because they were just going to get dried out and get crispy.
I'll go with that one.
Yeah.
Put them in other misery. And she could run across the track to get you. She just threw disc and shot. It's not like she was tired, at that point.
Yeah, she just like ran across there.
Oh, is either Haley in the or conference, or it was Kristen. We couldn't figure out which one we wanted to run.
In the
So,
I remember freshman year, I looked into maybe doing a little running and stuff, and I quickly realized, oh no, I should definitely stick to throwing. But I do have a very fun memory. This is because I was a discus and I was kind of off away from other people. But just a very fond memory whenever I think of high school sports. Track, you had to wait till the snow melted. And so sometimes we were practicing indoors, when it was raining or snowing or whatever. And I remember one time we would practice with a discus that had a strap across the back. So you'd have the discus underneath. We were practicing in the main hallway where there was room, so we weren't in other people's way. And fortunately, Dick was there because otherwise I would have just like died of embarrassment. We were practicing a spin and the strap broke and I shattered one of the big award display windows in the main hallway of the school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's bad enough. But I think it was the year prior, my brother, Paul Jen, he was in the weight room and he was treating a small, like 10-pound weight like a discus. And he was like spinning around, accidentally let go of it and shattered a water fountain, one of those porcelain water fountains. So the destruction of the Jen children.
you were close because Paul was showing everybody what you did and how
No.
happy you were for doing it. So then he spun and the weight slipped out of his hand and of course hit the built-in porcelain drinking fountain and shattered it. So it runs in the family, I think.
It does. It does. My poor dad.
Yeah.
And that, speaking of that thing with the strap, the disc with the strap, we use that. I was sitting on the stage one day and it let loose, and I think Darren Kruger was practicing, and it hit me in the back of the leg. Thankfully, not in the front. It would have shattered some stuff. I stayed clear of that. That strap was useless at that point, so I stayed away from that after that. But yeah, as soon as you said that, yep, there's going to be an accident. So
I think of another state track story, and I think this was in 1995, and we were walking in. It's different now how it is down there, but along the one road it was open down into the track, and so we're walking along, looking down.
I know what she's saying.
Awe of the whole thing, and
I know what she's going to say too.
you want to-
No, I want to hear this from your perspective.
Candace is just focused on that inside that blue track, and oh wow, I'm going to go in there, and boom, she runs into a pole. Yeah, which thankfully didn't do any damage, but you hit it really.
Not that we know of. I had a goose egg.
I was there
I had
last
a
year
goose
and
egg.
it's no longer there, Candace. So
Right, for the safety. Maybe I wasn't the only one.
yeah.
No, I was just so in awe. It was my first time at Drake. I'd never been there before. I was just kind of like, wow, just watching, looking, not watching where I was walking. And I had a nice little goose egg, a little black eye for the rest of the weekend. All good. All good. Thankfully, I think I had bangs and I wore that hat a lot that weekend. So we're good. But I feel like somebody was walking in front and they knew that they turned around because there was a van of girls driving by that all went, because they all saw me just, nail myself. So they turned around to see what they were, gasping at, and it was me. So.
Nice. And that's probably a memory when they get together, they still talk about that. Remember that one girl that
Right, exactly.
knocked herself out before she got in there? Yeah.
Exactly. Good times.
Yeah.
I,
Go ahead.
I would just like to say one thing that I think has been special for me as far as coaching is to hear what happens to what people have done with running after they get done with track. Because one of the things that I almost gave this message every year is you're not doing a game with track. It's a hard event thing to do because it's very individualized, but we tried to make it as much team as we could. But one of the things I enjoy the most is meeting up with some people that were out for track, and they didn't necessarily win any events. They did the workouts, but they maybe weren't very fast. But they fell in love with running because of track and what we were able to accomplish with team spirit and everything. And they do fun runs and they get their kids to run. And that is so cool to me that people are out there following through. People who were sprinters who didn't want to do long runs when they were in track, but we always have everybody do some long runs after a workout. And they developed even a love for that, and they would do fun runs and even longer.
Mhm.
So, and I think even for me, I think being a part of that and encouraging that challenged me when I got a little older. So past the time I had you guys, I ended up doing a marathon. And so I think the influence of all of them and the hard work they would do and their ability to see past the temporary into what's possible, kind of like what Candace was saying, we can always do a little bit more than what we think we can. And so that was just I just feel blessed to have been coach and to know so many people and not just, I read a letter from Bill Hudson and Linda Sanger after a 1993 track meet where we won the meet, and it had required us to make some switches last minute to be able to win that meet. And they wrote a letter saying good job to the whole track team and really appreciated it. And they all the people around the track, all the girls cheering each other on. So we had a lot of people cheering for us.
That's cool. Anybody else as we kind of wrap this thing up that you wanted to throw out there or say before we call it a night? Man. All right. Well, I want to thank my sponsors again. I had 17 of them. You can see on my screen. Thanks for giving to the Sanger Legacy Fund. Up next, Eric Koele and Vance Hagen. That will be an interesting, fun one. And then Jack Fisher, former principal at the school. I'm going to do an episode of some of the middle school teachers I had in Kanawha. And then Jeff and Brighton Kudej, and then 1977, 78, and 79 state volleyball teams from Britt High School. Should be a lot of fun. Since Haley's on here, I do have to put a plug out for the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. That'll be this fall. Candace got to be a part of it last year. Haley's a 2023 inductee into the Hall of Fame for all of her accolades at West Hancock, along with a lot of other great people like Jim Timmerman, Denny Brum, Dick Govig, the 1986 girls golf team that won a state title, the 1948 Kanawha baseball team that won a state title. I've gotten some information back from them. We're going to have some of those guys come out for that. And I feel like I'm missing somebody. I apologize to who that is that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's August 25th. It'll be at halftime of the football game against Garner. There will be a new track out there by then. They're going to start working on that like really soon, aren't they, Jen? Do you know the timeline on that?
I think they've started tearing down fence. If I heard right, that was one of the track workouts that the girls got to do recently.
Oh boy, yeah. So knock on wood that a project gets done on time, because it's going to be tight to get that ceremony that night and not have to switch that game to Garner. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. But Haley hopefully can be out there and we can honor her and her accolades. A lot of them that we talked about tonight. So congratulations to her, and hopefully everyone can get out there to the game and the country club afterwards for the ceremony. So, all right, with that being said, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. And go E-Gals, we should say. Go E-Gals.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was so great seeing all of y'all.
Yeah, it was good to see
Thank
you guys.
you.
Have a
You
good
bet.
night.
Too. That was
All right.
fun.
Yep, go E-Gals.
Bye.